Thanks for tuning in, guys. You're listening to Ace Comicals. I'm Greg Driver. I'm joined by Rahul Jani and Leon Everett. Let's go! Hello comics fans and welcome to another episode of Ace Comicals. This is Ace Comicals episode number 86 and I think this is the third one we're bringing to you from quarantine, is that correct?
Who knows at this point?
Oh God, yeah. I feel like we've always been on quarantine.
What day is it? Who am I? What's the outside? Do you remember when you were allowed to have friends and go visit them? Do you remember that? Yeah. This is Ace Comicals episode 86 and this is more stuff that we've been reading and doing during the worldwide lockdown that seems to be in place at the moment, I guess. I mean, like most of the world, I think some of the world's still not in lockdown, but a lot of the world that I kind of come into contact with via the internet or whatever seems to be stuck at home right now. And it's like the weather's doing this on purpose to taunt us because the weather's really nice right now in the UK, so...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just before we get into it, just a bit of catch up, I guess, because it's been a while since we've had like the full gang on here. So Ray, how have you been? It's been a while since you've been on, actually.
Yeah, I'm doing well. The reason I couldn't make it last time was because I had a family Zoom thing set up where we were basically me and all of my cousins and stuff trying to organize just like a catch up chat game session, whatever. It was a nightmare. It didn't go well. It was a lot of people talking over each other. But I'm glad that we did it because it's nice to be in touch with family and stuff. So it was a good sacrifice to not be on the cast for that episode, unfortunately. But other than that, trying to make the best of this situation, working from home and relatively comfortable with that. Company's been very good about providing, the resources we need to do that. So we've been, relatively unstressed in the grand scheme of things. So I consider myself quite lucky in that regard. And to occupy myself, I've been playing a lot of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which, despite, I think, a lot of chatter that's negative online, which I guess you get anyway, I'm actually having a really good time with it, like genuinely. And it's giving me a nostalgia trip. And me being someone who's not generally... I don't seek nostalgia as a way to satisfy myself. This is really hitting these buttons that I don't normally seek out. So, I'm really, really digging that. How about you guys?
Awesome. So, I've been playing, because basically, I before all of this, there's, a group of friends in Leicester that I kind of hang out with and whatever, people I've known since school days. So, I've been... hanging out with them online in Discord playing Halo.
Oh, nice.
A total throwback. Yeah. Master Chief Collection, like you were going to say. So at the moment, there's only Reach and Combat Evolved available on the Steam version on PC, but it's cool still. And you can have your own little custom games and you can join other games with people online where it's I may have mentioned this on the cast previously, I think I've definitely mentioned it to you guys previously, but it's like people have regressed to their 2003 selves, where the online Halo's concerned, because some of the messages that pop up in the chat, or when you can hear people losing their shit over the headsets when they've got themselves on public and things like that. It's some of the things they're saying and the things they're doing and things. It's like being on Xbox Live in 2003.
What a wonderful time to go back to.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm being sarcastic or not.
You're being
loves
sarcastic.
It,
but... You're being sarcastic because it's right down to the sort of homophobic and racial slurs. So
right, okay. Super.
Yeah, I don't know what causes people to. I thought we were past that, but there you go. Obviously not. I thought gaming had evolved past that. I didn't think any of that. I thought that toxicity had been kind of I know that the toxicity still exists, but I thought the toxicity had been pushed into a corner.
No, what you're wishing for is not what reality has given us. Gamers are garbage.
Unless you're a nice gamer, and then you're not. Yeah.
Wow.
So, because you might be listening to this and you might be a nice gamer.
Hashtag not all gamers.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, Leon, so what have you been up to?
I've been mixing my productive energies with my procrastination energies. So productivity-wise, I've been back on the languages, learning some Japanese again. Like picking up from where I've been doing it on and off for the last few months anyway, but I had a bit of a break, so I've jumped back in there, and it's pretty fun. It's weird. I initially did some like beginner Japanese like 12, 13 years ago, and it's wild what you remember, because at the time I'd learned how to like read and write hiragana and katakana, and now I wouldn't be able to do that to that degree. But it's funny the amount of like letters that you remember and words and context you remember, like seeing them again. You're like, I know which one this is. So relearning the alphabets has been not too bad, and like just leveling up my syntax and stuff it's been quite fun. It hasn't been like hard. It's just been like a learning process. So that's been cool, as well as various other things that I've been doing productively and creatively. And then on the procrastination side, I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty Warzone with my siblings, which is funny because I had my time in the sun with Call of Duty, and before that the Halos and like different other games, and I bounced off Call of Duty's really quick. I used to like get them and play the campaign modes, and then play the online for a few weeks, and then hate it really quickly, and then give the game to one of my younger brothers, and then they'd like level up and become a master at it. And I was cool with that because that loop wasn't for me. But with like battle royale games, I'm always intrigued by them, and I always like to like delve in, just see what they're doing differently and like what they're like. And I've had different experiences and like bounced off quite popular ones that just weren't working for me. But this one seems to, I don't know what it is. Like I should hate it because like the COD model does my head in, but it's actually quite fun, and especially playing with my siblings in like the weird setups we have where, because it's got crossplay, I'm on the PC, and then 3 of my siblings are on PS4s, and it's quite fun. Just like it's one of those weird things when we're playing it quite a lot, seeing each other level up and get better, and just being like a proper unit and a squad, and being able to call out stuff efficiently, and having a shorthand, and our accuracy getting better, and having our favorite weapons and stuff like that, and knowing who likes what, and getting the jump on people. It's super fun. So yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with that. It's ridiculous that it's a free game, but 100 gig download is unbelievable. So like,
100 gig download you've had to do a couple of times,
multiple times. And one time I had to, for my own version, when it was updating, it had to download 100 gigs again. So like, I'm so happy we do not have caps here, because I would have destroyed it. I'm sure in one weekend this household alone did 300 gigs.
Wow.
But like, yeah, that's been super fun. And I can't remember if I mentioned this on the last episode or not, but I finally started Breath of the Wild on the Switch. Nice. And I mean, there's not much to say about that game at this point, 3 years after the fact, but I'm loving it. And it's not really, there's a lot of walls up to me enjoying a game like this, where it's like open world, emergent gameplay, sparse story, your weapons deteriorate, loads of things that are just not my bag. But yeah, I think it's a mix of Nintendo's just next level game design, where they can get me doing Ubisoft stuff like climbing towers, but it feels so good, and it doesn't overwhelm me with like a million side missions. Instead, all of it feels a lot more like natural and organic, and you just stumble upon a thing, meet some people, start doing some stuff, and it's so funny because you'll like set a waypoint, and this is old news to people who love these types of games by default. But it's so funny to like go off the beaten track and like hold up a minute for like 5 hours in doing some side thing. Oh yeah, I was meant to go over here and talk to the Zoras. It's quite fun, and I'm like losing myself in it. It's like a perfect like quarantine era game as well, because you're just going into like this new world, and you just I know, because it's so different. The thing I love about Zelda, like this one and historic ones, is that it's not fantasy. It's its own like thing, and it's mixing in all these different elements from other bits, other like stories and stuff over like decades. But it's created this own original world, and especially with this one where it mixes technology a bit more with this more like semi-fantasy aesthetic. It's fresh and it feels original, and yeah, I'm quite enjoying that.
Cool. Something else actually that I wanted to mention that I've been doing, I did a guest spot on Story X Story this week, which the episode should be dropping soon. We did a discussion of The Dark Knight, the Christopher Nolan film, Batman Dark Knight, and it was real great fun to discuss The Dark Knight through the lens of The Long Halloween, like, which I don't think I've ever done properly before. So that was nice, because I love The Long Halloween. It's a great Batman book, and The Dark Knight being the best film in that trilogy as well. And because it's so heavily based on that comic, and when you read when you watch the film and read the book, and you kind of get them in tandem, it kind of really shows. So yeah, it was great fun to guest on Story X Story. That's that Story X Story, which is a Mayamada podcast. Mayamada is like a kind of creative collective that create their own comics and things like that. They make manga and all sorts of other stuff. They've got like a computer game event that they do and all kinds of things. So yeah, that was great fun, and hopefully we'll be able to get those guys on to discuss. In fact, I want to get those guys on to discuss The Long Halloween with us, as kind of like to kind of work in tandem with me going over there to discuss the movie with them. So hopefully we'll be able to get the Mayamada guys guesting on here. On top of that as well, Ace Comicals now does t-shirts, which I managed to get online earlier this week, actually, the week of recording this podcast. So there's 2 designs up so far. There's the standard AC pink on yellow, which is like our new circle logo. You may have seen that floating around on the website already and things like that. And there's also the Loft Dweller's Jack-o'-lantern, which is kind of like a little logo I came up for the Loft Dweller, which is the character that I play when I do Halloween episodes, and when I introduce my short horror stories, which I've done 2 of so far. You can go back and check those out. But basically, this is me trying to be a horror host. So let's see how that goes. Because horror, like, especially after reading Count Crowley and talking about Count Crowley on the cast, I'm thinking, why have I never been a horror host? Why can't I just be a podcast horror host, right?
We've been telling you this for years.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do the Loft Dweller is my horror host persona. So you can buy either the Loft Dweller's Jack-o'-lantern on a t-shirt or a jumper or a hoodie, whatever, or the standard AC logo at the moment. Stickers, mugs, magnets. If you can print it on something, you can, it's possible to create that. So yeah, go and take a look. That is acecomicals.threadless.com.
I might be biased because you're my friend and I like you, but I think this the Loft Dweller's Jack-o'-lantern design is incredible. It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, it's blue and purple hand holding a jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah,
I'm never entirely happy with my own artwork, so I'm going to refrain from.
Nobody cares what you think. I think it's great. Don't.
I mean, like, I'm trying to get another couple of designs ready. I've got like some creepy ice cream thing going on, and I want to make them look like, I'm trying to get them to look like lo-fi as fuck. So they look kind of like old TV type thing. Like,
yeah, I can see that from the banner you've put up. I think you should put this, our new Ace Comicals Twitter logo, which is the eyeballs coming out of the skull with the green tongue. I think you should put that on a t-shirt as well. I'd wear that.
Yeah, that must be done.
Yeah, that will go on a shirt. I'll do that. I'll make an eye popper shirt.
Nice.
But you can only buy it on pink because, like,
Fine.
I literally do not think it looks good on any color other than pink, and that's just me. Like, I'm going to buy it on pink if I buy it, but yeah, I do not think it would look good against anything but bright pink. And I mean, the threadless store that I've got, there is a coral pink option for the standard t-shirts, so I'll probably just try and limit it to that. I don't know.
And that's the thing. I think, like, post-quarantine, everybody needs to change up their color game. None of this mono, none of this all black. Like, everyone just needs to embrace their colors a bit more. I've heard so much whining about people wanting to go out and being stuck indoors. Like, once everybody's out again, I don't want to see people wearing boring-ass normal colors, man. This is the time. This will be the time.
Well, I mean, like, I walk around looking like liquid television threw up on me anyway. So it's not like I walk around looking like MTV vomit anyway. So that's not me. That's not aimed at me, obviously. But
no, and the thing, like, screw your Supreme bricks, like, True Hype Beast, wear Ace Comical merch.
Yeah, man. Get your Ace Comicals merch. Get it covered in beer. Wear it at concerts. You know.
Dripping in comics.
Yeah. Read some comics wearing it.
And the next time there's a thought bubble, you'll see us all kitted out.
Yeah. I'd love to get snapbacks. Like, I mean, I'd love to get snapbacks.
On a slight tangent, just because I forgot about this story, because I bought some Jordan Lows, like in pine green, which I'd been wanting for years, and they finally brought them out again. And there was, like, limited run, and I couldn't get them directly from Foot Locker or whatever, so I had to get them off StockX for, like, a premium price, and they arrived a couple of days after the lockdown started. So I've just been sadly wearing them in my roof garden, like, walking around in circles, because, like, when else am I going to get to wear them? It's really depressing. I can't wait for the lockdown to be over just so I can wear those out.
Yeah, man. So I guess we should start talking about comics right now, shouldn't we?
Let's do it.
And what better way to open than with TKO's 7 Deadly Sins? So you may have heard of a manga anime called 7 Deadly Sins. This ain't it. This is the 7 Deadly Sins, and this is this is published by TKO, and this is written by Seichun. Art is by Artyom Trakhonov. Color art is by Julia Brusco. Lettered by Jared K. Fletcher, and editor Sebastian Gerner. And this is a rough and grimy Western comic. It isn't afraid to get its hands dirty with the truth about the Old West. So that's your kind of, like, content warning right there. Because there's a lot of unsavory parts about the Old West and the way things used to be during the 1800s that was just reality back then, and this comic does not shy away from that. So I'll read the blurb. So 1867, the Wild West, a kidnapped child, a fallen priest, a deadly crew of death row criminals led by an African-American outlaw who embark on a bloody quest of redemption and revenge to gain what they've searched for their entire lives, freedom. So each of the main characters kind of embodies a sin, and they're up against this, like, nasty priest guy who, in this kind of, like, Dirty Dozen scenario, they've all committed crimes and done bad things, but one of them is clearly worse than the rest. And he gets what's coming to him. But yeah. So don't worry about that. It's a story about survival and vengeance and trying to right wrongs. And it's about paying debts and about like, it's got this whole eye for an eye thing going on, this whole, like, decades long eye for an eye thing that kind of threads throughout the whole sort of, like, story. Basically, it's just crude and ugly in places, and it highlights the prejudice and savagery of the Old West, which kind of works for the story as well, because, like, it's not just because I think me and Leon were discussing this before. Like, are they just doing it because they can, or are they doing it because it actually adds something to the story? And in this case, I wasn't too sure about it when I was only like an issue and a half in, but having finished the whole thing, it actually is doing it to add something to the story, and it's that way on purpose. And it has like more than a tinge of Tarantino about it. So if you imagine like this, it's like this unrelenting assault and battery, the kind of thing that you'd imagine from a Tarantino Western. It's got like a bit of Django Unchained and a bit of Hateful Eight going on. The art is bold and brash and really high energy. It's a cartoon world with plenty of detail, and especially when things get ugly or violent, it does not. It wants to show you the worst, and it does that in such a cool way. And I think that's the philosophy of this entire story. The pacing's excellent, and it's if you're missing Vertigo, this is where you would go to get you some Vertigo, I guess. Like a bit of Vertigo edge about it, but more of a modern, like compared to how things used to be, where things used to, the trend in comics, I guess, back in when we're thinking classic Vertigo was to kind of err more on the side of realism, wasn't it? But this has got more of a modern feel artwork wise, which I really, really like. The pacing's excellent, and the slow drip feed of character details keeps you on your toes and wondering the whole time. There's twists and turns and some really awesome tension building. The art really feeds into that. I mean, like the inhospitable environs of like the American West, like the deserts and things like that, are captured perfectly, along with like tortured facial expressions throughout. And there's two shootouts, but it ends with one hell of a shootout. Like finish it off like any good Western would, like one hell of a shootout. So that's on TKO, and the whole thing's available now. You can buy it in two formats. You can buy a 6-issue box set, or you can buy the trade. You can also grab it digitally over at Comixology. But yeah, I love this thing that TKO do, where they release all 6 issues and the trade at once, so you can just read the entire story. I think that's really cool. And like I 100% dug this book. So I would recommend it. I'd recommend it to you too, actually. I think you should read it. It's great. Like, especially the storyline with the main character. Like, he has this like really cool redemption storyline. Like the sin that he embodies is wrath. So each of them is like one of the 7 deadly sins, and he is wrath. And the way his story goes and ends is really, really cool. Like his arc is fantastic. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing's great.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah. And Ray, I recommend it to you as well. You should totally check this out. It's great.
I'll check that out when I'm in a place that where I don't just want like bright, colorful comics. But it sounds really good.
Yeah, I mean, it is bright and colorful, but this is what I mean by it's got like it's like that Vertigo spirit, but inside a modern like shell, and it's really good. So on from there, I guess we move on to Quarantine Comics, which is something that I've been enjoying, and you as well, Ray, right?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Because you talked about issue number 1 last time, right?
Yeah. So Quarantine Comics is the thing that the Ice Cream Man team are putting out at the moment while we're all locked down and stuck in our own homes. And they appear to be putting them out weekly. It does say on the website it could be weekly or bi-weekly, doesn't it? Depending on, like, you know, I guess their output and things like that. Yeah, but it's weekly at the moment, so there's 3 available. So like basically we've talked about issue 1. Ray, you read issue 1, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I've caught up on all 3 today, in fact.
Yeah. So what did I mean? Like, do you want to just tell us quickly what you thought of issue 1?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in general, I was thinking if Ice Cream Man is like a sickeningly filling sundae, then Quarantine Comics is like gourmet popcorn poetry. And it's like each new issue that they're putting out is focused on a specific anxiety of the creator as they're going through the quarantine, I guess. So like specifically issue 1, it's focused on like the lost creativity in this time of quarantine and the endless distraction and grim comfort of the online space. And it's super effective. Like it's 5 pages long, I think 4 or 5 pages long. it's doing some really interesting thematic comparisons for the creator against William Shakespeare, and some of the panel construction is really interesting. One thing I love about reading stuff on PDF is it's so easy to see how the construction of a page and the panels and the things framed inside those panels are overlaid, and you can clearly tell if you flick between page 1 and 2 in this, they've literally drawn over the same base frame construction. And I really like just flicking back and forth between modern day and historic William Shakespeare setting, and just seeing the different features flick back and forth. I'm kind of hypnotized by it as I'm talking. It's really good. I really enjoyed this. What did you think of it?
Oh yeah, I mean, you obviously know I loved it. So
well, of course,
yeah, because anything by these guys is something that's just I instantly love, and it's been a little bit of a light in the times at the moment. It's something for me to look forward to, which I really like. So I mean, issue 2 is called True Original, and for me, this is my favorite one of the 3 so far.
I didn't realize they had titles. What is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it called again?
On the website, it's called True Original.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So, I mean, this one is... It provided a much-needed laugh. It's a witty retelling / parody of the creation, Garden of Eden, Fall of Man thing from the Book of Genesis, the Bible. And I absolutely loved it. I loved the wisecracks and the general acerbic pops at modern society and how we live in such dull, unfulfilling lives towards the end. And the fact that ice cream is the world's greatest fucking food, you're damn right it is. I love that, because instead of the apple, it's an ice cream cone. So when Eve tastes the ice cream, it's you had dessert, but you're not allowed to have dessert. God said you're not allowed dessert. I absolutely love that bit. It's great. And yeah, the serpent has been replaced with Rick the Ice Cream Man, and the apple is the ice cream cone. And the decision to make them modern men and women, humans, modern people, is really good. The way they talk and the way they behave. And the fact that Adam is just so absolutely fucking vacant, walking around naming everything. And Eve's the only one that's got anything about her, which is kind of my relationship, really. But yeah.
I mean, she says it herself, well, her husband being a kind man, it must be said being a bit of a fucking idiot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he is. Because I am. And I'm sure Sophie would say something very similar about me. But yeah, it's a fantastic little story, and I laughed hard at this. That's my favorite one of the 3 so far. This Garden of Eden thing is great. I mean, I can't really say much that I've not already said about the way this team work together and the way they gel and the art that they produce as a result of that. Because we've talked about Ice Cream Man ad infinitum, and this is just more of that.
Yeah, it's got the same shine, the same level of polish. It's got the same pacing and timing and comic timing and humor and everything. It's the same. What you'd expect from Ice Cream Man is represented here as well.
Exactly. There's not a lot really that I can say about the art and everything else that I've not already gushed over, to be fair. So it's fantastic. And then number 3 is Convention of Mics. And I think that's what it's called. I'm gonna fact check myself, and I'm going to find the title for issue 3.
Yeah, I'm not sure where you find these titles.
It is actually called Convention of Mics. Yeah, if you go to the Quarantine Comics website, Ray.
Yeah.
And then you get the bit where it says the comics, where you can add them to your cart.
Right.
If you click on that, it tells you what they're called when it gives you the brief.
Ah, so it does, because they're not in the PDF, but yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, titles aren't in the PDFs, but they are on the website. So Convention of Mics, though you might not be a mic yourself, you're invited to this, the first ever Convention of Mics. And this was good because this is kind of this has got a real cool message, this has. Because the whole thing about this is it's the conversation you probably have with yourself in the mirror every morning. I know I do. And it's the idea that we should celebrate who we are and how we've learned, and we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves. Like no matter what we've done, yes, we've done things, but we've fallen and we've gotten back up and we've learned from it, and we're now better people for that. And although that part of you existed then, you are a better person now for having been that person, I guess. So imagine like you're in a convention hall, in a room, like a rented hall in a hotel, and there's all different versions of you. So like your 15-year-old self, your yourself from university, yourself from your first job, yourself at your lowest low, things like that, just all sitting in this room, like representations of you, like snapshots of you through various periods of time, defining points in your life where you have been something else, like a you that got fit and a you that got fat, etc. Right? So imagine that, and imagine like a convention like that where you're all wearing little name tags and buying drinks and stuff. So that's the idea of it. And it's kind of like the idea that when you look in the mirror, you see all these versions of yourself. And sometimes we're hard on ourselves because we think about what we've done in the past and things like that. And we are ashamed of certain parts of ourselves. We're ashamed of what we may have done. But this comic tells you not to be so hard on yourself, and to realize that you should celebrate that you have been through all of that and you are now a better person for that. And it's a nice little positive message for in these times, which I really like about this, actually, because these are diametrically opposed to most of the material that you get in Ice Cream Man, aren't they? Because they're less because Ice Cream Man has the kind of like this kind of like undercurrent of hopelessness about it, but these are less of that, and I think that's what you need right now. So I quite like that they're doing that, like dialing back the like existential terror and keeping it a little bit more.
I think you and I sometimes diverge on this a little, because like you even said it with issue number 2, where you hinted that it was quite defeatist, but I think it ends on a really positive note. Like it's because, like, to go back to issue 2 very briefly, like it's about, to me, it was about the pleasures and the monotonies of real life, not just the monotonies of real life. So I think I don't think this is too much of a departure. Like I think even in general in Ice Cream Man, I think there is some hope to be found. But yeah, you're right. This one is quite a hopeful message. It's got quite a positive message about like recognizing your past behaviors, putting yourself in a room with yourself, recognizing your past behaviors and accepting yourself and your past failures. And like I really like the tag on the website, because you just brought me back to the page, and the tag on it is "Watch as Mike after Mike interacts with Mike and Mike alike." Just it in a nutshell. It's very good.
I do really like that.
Yeah.
I love the idea of this one, and it's again it's a massive comfort to me, this comic. Like it's the kind of thing that I need to read a lot of. And we're not so different from each other as strange, upright, hairless apes, I guess. And that's something that these Ice Cream Man comics are showing me, and that this is particularly showing me. And it's the usual expert cocktail of talent that makes up an Ice Cream Man book, and these little sweet treats of the comics you need and deserve. So go and buy them, because they're $2 each. Yes.
Yeah, and it's for a good cause as well. They do say 50% of the proceeds will be donated to an effort to support comic books contending with the financial hardships of COVID closures, etc. So do that. Yes. Do our industry a favor.
$2, man. That's like £1.60 something in English pounds. But yeah, it's totally worth it. Totally worth your time.
I would agree with that. I think these are quality little nuggets of joy.
Yes. I do enjoy them very much. So Leon, next one's yours.
Yes. The next comic is one I was going to speak about a few episodes ago, but never got around to it.
I feel like if we're going to talk about this, we need a filthy bass line.
You're going to put some music on. So this is a comic from Vault Comics called Money Shot, and best way to describe it is their like catch-up blurb in the second issue, I think, which I think gets to the point more So in 2027, an advanced alien civilization made contact, and the people of Earth discovered they were not alone. An offer to join the civilized universe was made, but then the aliens saw what a total shit show Earth was. Now in 2032, note the date, 2032, amid an anti-science presidential administration and public apathy, scientists in an economically crippled America, again, 2032, struggle to fund innovative projects. Enter physicist Dr. Christine Ocampo. Dr. Ocampo has convinced a team of scientists to join her in crowdfunding her expensive interstellar transport project, nicknamed Money Shot. For the price of a website membership, viewers can witness acts of sex never before seen on Earth, while their XX explorers gather data and information among the stars. So that is the basic overview of this series, and I think that really accurately covers what the comic's about. So, like in the vein of things such as, I guess, like sex criminals, I think one of the not even aims, but one of the things that happens with the comic is that it's more like a fun, sex positive, and like adventurous book, where leaning into the sort of jokes and the sort of held backness of society, so it opens the door for a lot of silly puns and a lot of silly jokes. But what may on the surface, especially with the covers, may scare people away thinking it's some sort of porno comic or something like that. Actually, behind it, it's a sharp and non-gratuitous and insightful socio-political commentary, but like a lot of fun. And it covers a lot of like topics that we're thinking about now in society, whether it be like anti-science outlooks, or whether it be things like the gig economy and sort of self-employment, and the rise of I guess the rise of like visibility of like sex workers, especially on like different platforms, and like with Patreons and stuff like that. And but it explores that, but via a sort of sci-fi slant to show sort of like not even end state, but like a next stage where we get to a degree where the government won't even fund science projects anymore, so they have to be crowdfunded, and they can't even be crowdfunded the normal way. You've got to spice it up a bit. So these scientists band together, and they fund their research and their space adventures by basically hooking up with aliens, Captain Kirk style. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. The book. It's I think one of the things that it's really smart on is like aiming to like sort of remove the shame and like puritanical like outlook with that, and highlighting the business, artistry, and even basic production considerations with stuff like that. Whether someone is a quote unquote like cam girl, or some like any sex worker who makes videos, uploads, and stuff like that. There's a lot more going into the business transaction of it all than what might be perceived. And for a lot of people in a world, especially in say places like the States, where there's a lot less safety nets and like social safety nets and things like health insurance and stuff like that, people are having to, and with 0-hour contracts everywhere, people are having to find any other routes to make money. And this is one way where people have found a way to take control, and especially a lot of people in some like marginalized backgrounds being able to sort of take control and basically be head of their own content. So yeah, it handles a lot of these like really interesting and intriguing themes, but then plays out in a sort of original series Star Trek's Adventure the Universe way, but like melding all this stuff together and giving it like a sexy sheen. So it's definitely worth a read. I believe a whole trade of this is completed. I've only read the first 2 issues, but I want to go through and complete it. It's so hard to talk about this book and like not make all the puns that that popping in my head, but I've fully avoided it so far, and I will continue. But it is, I highly recommend it. I think if you invest in it, you'll get enough bang for your buck. Damn
it! Very good.
Awesome.
And the credits for Money Shot are as follows. It's written by Tim Seeley and Sarah Beattie. It's drawn by Rebecca Isaacs, coloured by Kurt Michael Russell, and lettered by Cranky. And as I said, it's published by Vault Comics.
And Ray.
Yeah.
The next one's yours, right?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about a comic called Finger Guns. There are 2 issues out so far. I think number 2 came out on the 1st of April. So I just caught up with these. It's a new book by Vault Comics, written by Justin Richards, art by Val Halverson, colors by Rebecca Nolte, and lettering by Taylor Esposito. So I'm just going to rattle off my little spiel, and then I think, Leon, you've also read this, right?
I have.
I'll throw to you once I've done this. But so like my initial reaction to this, I picked it up as I always do with these comics, based on the cover. It's got a super striking candy cane cover by Val Halverson, which I think was flippable in the physical release. Like it's if you spread it out, you can see both covers. Like you could read them upside down, and both sides of the cover depict these worried children side-eyeing a bunch of finger guns being pointed at them, and the characters are shrouded in like these anxious lines, like hazing off of them. And there's a lot of detail in the covers which then reference specific functions in the main story. So the concept in its broadest terms is, what if you could influence people's behavior by pointing at them and shooting them with an imaginary gun? So to zoom in a little bit more, it focuses on 2 children, one of whom is a 13-year-old boy named Wes. Wes is bored, apparently unpopular, and comes home every day to an empty house, missing the attention of his absent, late working, hardworking father. Wes discovers he has the titular finger gun power, specifically the power to incite anger in anyone he chooses. And while indulging in this, he meets a young girl named Sadie. And it's later shown that her proper name is Saudade, I believe it's pronounced. Apologies if I'm saying that wrong, which I think is a Brazilian Portuguese name. And she appears to have the opposing power, which is to incite calm in people. And we find out early on that Sadie comes from a troubled home with an aggressive and violent father. And what follows is Sadie and Wes's growing friendship, experimentation of their powers, and a look into their difficult home lives and their attempts to use their powers to solve some of their personal problems. So the art has a really... I have to say up front, I love the art. It has a really clean, friendly, digestible style, bolstered by some like deliciously vibrant sweet shop color palettes, like particularly in the gradient backgrounds, which meld bright, stippled greens, pinks, oranges, purples together. And it makes me hungry for gummy sweets. And I don't know, like as a quick aside, I don't know if that's just quarantine me talking, because I haven't had a chance to buy like sweets, which is my main vice. I haven't had that many sweets lately, but it really made me want to buy like fruit pastels or something. And so the characters in these settings are all really lovingly presented. I think there's a great deal of warmth and joy that comes off the page as we see these 2 children navigating their newfound friendship. And similarly, the stresses and anxieties they experience at home is boldly communicated without becoming too cartoony. And like the page constructions and panel framings are very chunky and legible. And it's not doing anything like particularly fancy for the most part, but it's always very clear and intentional, and focuses instead on the skillful and expressive character work. And this like simplicity in the majority, it also allows the occasional constructional flourishes to stand out all the more. There's a particularly emotional pairing of happy moments and tense moments in issue number 2, which I found like quite touching. And there's a 2-page spread also in issue number 2 where Wes and Sadie have a shootout, and it's arranged like a fan of cards on a table. And just generally, I'm really taken with this comic. And I know I've deliberately sort of tiptoed around major plot points, but I'm definitely happy to talk about them if you want to, Leon. So I'm going to pass over to you. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much all you've said. I think that you've going back to what you're saying of the color. Even on the covers, I found the contrasting colors to be really cool. I found the color throughout. I like how you have these panels with like block background colors, and like they're usually action panels or even like emotional action panels. And I think it's really good at really good at conveying an emotion. And I think throughout the book, the art and the colors are really good at conveying like monotony without monotone colors, but quite the opposite. I really love the facial and body expressions throughout. There's just such a cool, almost larger than life detail to them, but it's still grounded in a reality, which is awesome. And it's fun because you have this whole thing leading up to these characters like meeting, and there's a lot of good like sequential panels which are very good at visualizing the loneliness and isolation of a socially orphaned teen. Particularly in the first issue, there's a cool set of panels where the main guy, is it Wes?
Yeah.
Yes. He's at home, then he's on a bus, and then he's walking, and he's all on his phone at the time. But it's the same look, the same sort of emptiness, the same sort of yearning for some sort of connection, having been more or less abandoned by his parent. And it's really cool. I like how it touches on some basic stuff where you have Wes, who's abandoned and lonely. You've got Sadie, who's like suffocated by a family environment, but like you have that great line about the grass is always greener, because like you have that, like I think it's like similar to the thing of like kids who have like siblings and kids who are only child, and it's like the kids with the siblings materialistically be like, oh, I wish I was only child, then I'd get all this cool stuff that you have, and instead of these hand-me-downs, blah blah blah. Whereas the single child is like, oh, I wish I had brothers and sisters like to like hang out with and play with and stuff like that. And I think it really is good, and like with a lot of like fiction based on teens that I like when they're able to sort of zoom in on what it's like at that age, where the world revolves around your problems more so than they actually do, and everything feels like hyper intense, but then at the same times awful things just become everyday. And especially not wanting to pull attention to yourself or be like a problem person, there's certain things where you just keep them to yourself, and you just sort of move on with how life is. And yes, things get heavy quick, especially in issue 2. And like I feel I'm on the same page too. I don't know. It's not really spoiler stuff, but I know I don't want to like lay all the cards out for it, so I'll continue to speak around it. But there's definitely like weird sort of domestic drama in there that makes it take a turn. And yeah, just overall, there's so many like little details throughout that I quite jolted with. I loved the finger gun standoff, I believe in issue 2, with the various different ASL hand signs. I thought I just love I love that you have this magical realist element, but it's not the sole focus like I thought it was going to be going in. And instead it's almost a MacGuffin for these two characters to meet and have like one other person in the world they can trust and talk to, which is cool. Like other little details that I love, because for a while at the beginning I was wondering, because it had sort of an analog feel, and I was thinking, oh, is this like period, or is it, you know, like something like the Legion TV show where it doesn't have a place but it has technology from the past and blah blah blah. But it's very much like, obviously now, because it's like a Breath of the Wild poster in the background and stuff. But I did love things. I think it's mostly because of things like the vinyl records and like the cool S t-shirts and stuff like that. But it all makes sense that these like Zoomers would have all this stuff. But I love stuff like the Mr. County, who's the guidance counselor. How when you first see him, there's an employee of the month photo above his head doing the exact same pose, and it gave me like proper Hot Fuzz vibes.
Yeah, it's the Hot Fuzz thing.
Yeah,
that's It Crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first, in fact, is it the first episode of It Crowd where they meet the boss, the manager?
Yeah.
Yeah, it like zooms out from the photo of him and he's doing the same pose behind the desk. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
like there's a lot of like cool things like that, and a particular series of panels that I really enjoyed was in issue 2, where I'll say a character and their mum are hanging out, and there's a series of panels of them like cooking and hanging out together, and you've got musical notes floating from frame to frame. It really did, like I was saying before about how the colors are used. I think that really does convey like the emotional truth of that moment, and like almost to how it would feel in a memory, which I found to be quite cool. But there's a lot of stuff in there that resonates with me quite a lot, and it was just fun to spend time. Though not to snark on Green Day, but if American Idol changed how you listen to music, man, allow me to introduce him to Dookie at least. Like,
I mean, he's 13, right? Like we all went through.
I can't fault him really, because he's holding Talking Heads earlier, and he's got some like cool music in his collection. So yeah, I mean that,
and it's inherited from his parents.
And that's a lot better than like a lot of Zoomers these days and some of the tracks you listen to.
Yeah,
but
my kids, if I ever have kids, are going to have a fantastic musical education.
We'll see.
They're not going to like anything
when they rebel against you.
Yeah.
But going back to what I was saying about like the magical realism, I'm happy for that element to be a side element, but I do have some hope that the magic syncs up with the story and themes more in following issues, and I think it will. I just think there's potential there to do more with all of that together. But
yeah, you've just articulated something I was struggling to know how to put. But that thing of like the finger guns not even being the main focus, and it sort of slightly tricks you with that. That's something I really felt, and yeah, I agree. I hope it does sort of sync up again.
Because it's not even that from a stance of like, oh, we want there to be more powers and magic and stuff. But I think that there's potential for it to fit in with how these characters are feeling and their life, especially what the particular, like the finger guns do.
Because there's already a yin-yang aspect to both the powers that they have and the people that they are.
And like the element of discovery and experimentation with them as well. Like, it does give me shades of, I don't know why I brought this up actually, because I never get this title right, but the Netflix show with the two kids from It in it, that is recent.
God, I watched it. I love it, but I've forgotten
is it that This Is Not Okay thing? Or
yes, thank you.
Yeah, that one.
It gives me a lot of shades of that actually, in a lot of different ways, but in a different, like, bouncy, colourful sense. But there's a lot of shared DNA, I should say, between those two projects, and I think that if you liked one, you would like the other, but for varying reasons.
That's a really good comparison, actually. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it only just popped into my head now thinking about it. which is why I didn't have the title ready. But yeah, I mean, overall, yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said, and I think that it just has a nice feeling to it. Had a lot of fun reading these 2 issues, and I am looking forward to more.
Do you want to know what's not okay? The fact that we've been getting the title wrong anyway. It's called "I'm Not Okay with This," not "This Is Not Okay." It's "I Am Not Okay with This." There you go.
And I was saying it's based off a comic as well, but
yeah.
What can you do? That for some reason, as much as I love that show, the title just does not stick in my head.
Yeah. You have to describe it as the one where it's got the characters from it in it. Like that's how I've sold it to other people, because I can't remember it as well. Yeah.
But it's a great show.
Really is.
Yeah.
Also, this comic has an extremely cute dog in it, and I'm not even a dog person. I think I've talked about this in the past, but this dog is extremely cute to the point where I've taken photos of the dog and sent it to friends who I know who like dogs and say, "Hey, you'd fall in love with this dog, but I don't care about it. But I'm sending it to you because I think you like it."
I don't care about this dog, but this dog's amazing.
Yeah, I have to pretend like it hasn't touched me, but it super has, because it's adorable.
The next show we do, you're going to be like talking about how you've got like 10 Pomeranians or something.
Yeah, just surrounded by them.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on and take you guys back in time, because I was supposed to originally, when I was like asked if I wanted to be a guest on Story X Story, we were going to be discussing the New Mutants movie, which has been pushed back yet again. This time because of the global pandemic stuff, right? And New Mutants, I mean, like, by the time this movie comes out, that cast are going to be well into their 50s anyway, so, but it's been pushed back that many times. But yeah, so what I did was I went back and I was like, you know what, this is like a real good excuse to hop back in and read some classic X-Men books. So yeah, the movie got pushed back again, and in prep for the guest spot, I was like, yeah, let's read some classic X-Men books. And specifically the Claremont McLeod New Mutants stuff. It's not like I needed much of an excuse, but I did it anyway, because like it's not like I would have just read these comics anyway, because this is just what I do. But yeah, I'm still reading it, and I've been taking my time enjoying the classic craftsmanship and everything else with these books. So this is the New Mutants by Chris Claremont, art by Bob McLeod. Tom Orszowski is the letterer on this, and Glynis Wine is the colorist. And yeah, so New Mutants Volume 1, as it is commonly known. But this is sort of like spinning out of the success of the X-Men comics under Claremont beginning in the early 80s in September 1982. And it has an introduction to the introduction to the characters was in an original graphic novel, which was Marvel graphic novel number 4, which was so that kicked off. That was like September 82. That was Marvel graphic novel number 4. And then the run actually kicks off in March of 1983 with New Mutants number 1. I do love these stories, and it's also it's like always nice to dive into some classic books now and again and just let it wash over you, I guess. Like just looking at the artistic trends of the time and the trends in page composition and lettering and storytelling, and also the way in which comics were actually conceived and made. Namely the Marvel method, which rather than today's most common method of comic production, which involves sending a full script and panel descriptions to the artist to tell them exactly what you want, the Marvel method involves a creative team coming together for what is known as a story conference, where the basic outline of the plot is worked out and then given to the artist, where the artist would then produce pages and the script would be added afterwards. So it's a bit backwards, as you can imagine, like the friction this probably caused within the creative teams, and like, because it's not the most efficient way of working, especially if you're the artist, it makes life for you so much harder. Like pages would have to be redone to fit the story, and you would end up producing twice as much work. And it, like, I mean, I found an article on CBR.com, which is like Marvel method depictions in comics, like in backup stories. that were published in books. And it just like, I mean, they're making light of it and they're making fun of it with these backup stories with like their creative basically just detailing their creative process as it was back then. But I can only imagine how miserable it must have been to work that way around. Like to do all this like cool artwork and then be told, oh wait, that doesn't quite fit the story. Can you go back and redraw this entire page, please? I mean, like, can you imagine? And like,
it's a nightmare.
Yeah, I bring this up because I've also noticed that it also results in overly described and narrated pages, which you get a lot of in these New Mutants books. I think that's kind of like a Claremont thing as well, where he puts in like a lot of like narration, but in New Mutants, maybe where the page doesn't quite portray what the writer wanted it to, so extra text is added to kind of steer the reader in the right direction. And I guess the pages produced based on a general outline of the story would be less specific in tone and message, so you kind of have to do that to compensate for it. I don't know, but it kind of I feel like this is kind of a trend in like older comics as well, like with this kind of stuff, like where they kind of have less faith in the artist. But I guess that's just because the artist doesn't have the full script in front of them when they're making this book, so they're going to sit there and they're going to draw from this like basic outline of this conversation that you had in an office a week ago or whatever when you had your story conference. And yeah, it's just the idea of it, and I just thought I thought it was fun to kind of read about that and like enjoy comics made that way and just look at the difference between that and now. And in contrast to this, actually, some of the classic Batman books that I've been reading, I went and read a few classic Batman books this week, and I can't get enough of Jim Aparo as Batman. Like, his art for me is some of the best Batman comics ever produced. But in contrast, these comics kind of flow a little better, and there's less. I mean, there's still a fair bit of narration, but there's less narration and less. Because if you look at like, there's more like letting the art do the talking, like full action sequences played out across panels and things like that, rather than an action sequence or an action happening and then it having to be described as well. But you get like, if you compare comics then to comics now, like comics now are more, it's more like watching a television show, whereas comics then were very much comics and were closer to reading than they were to watching a television show. But now things seem to have kind of transitioned into more, letting the visuals do the talking a bit more, I feel. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that or have anything to say about that.
It depends, because it depends on, I guess, the era of comics you're reading from, and also the genre as well. Because I found a lot of superhero comics from like the 80s and 90s were a bit more, well, not 90s, but like the late 70s and the 80s were a bit more overtly descriptive, whereas like then in the 80s you got a lot of comics like from like the Millers and Moores and all the others around that time, and that seemed to be a bit more like literary, but still supremely like visual. So it's kind of hard. It muddies. But yeah, I would agree. Like now, running comics do feel like TV productions, and like how not even just how they're presented in the end, but how they come together. I definitely have that feeling.
Yeah. So I mean, like we're talking about the New Mutants Volume 1, which was the original team from New Mutants was Karma, which is Sean Koyman, Psyche, who is Danny Moonstar, Cannonball, Sam Guthrie, Wolfsbane, who is the Scottish girl Rain Sinclair, and Sunspot, Bobby DaCosta. So Bobby DaCosta, Sunspot, he absorbs solar energy and then he can kind of switch on a enhanced, but like he basically you can output that solar energy as enhancements like strength and things like that. He kind of like turns completely black, like a void for light, basically, when he does this. And he gets enhanced strength and things from the solar energy, and he has to charge up in the sun. Wolfsbane, Rain Sinclair, she turns into a wolf. Danny Moonstar's power is quite cool. Like, she can pull images from your mind. She can pull like memories or like thoughts out and display them in front of you in like 3D.
Oh my god, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, so she can create. Well, in the comics, that is explored about how that actually kind of like is a breach of like privacy and things like that, and what people's reactions to her power as well. Karma can possess you, so she can stay in her own body, but then what she can do is she can take control of you as well, and she can like move you like a puppet and make you do things. And Cannonball can like use kinetic energy to launch himself in like a specific direction through the air and whatever. And obviously, while he's doing this, he's semi-invulnerable, so he can't be harmed, and he just crashes. He can crash into things like knock walls down, stuff like that. So he's pretty powerful, but obviously the one drawback is it's very hard to control. Once he's launched, it's hard for him to. It takes a lot of effort for him to try and turn or something like that. So, and they're all obviously still learning how to use their powers under Xavier's tutelage. Like, these are young teenagers, newly recruited by Xavier. So yeah, New Mutants, check it out. It's good fun. It's nice to go back and look at where all of that started. I mean, especially if you're enjoying the current New Mutants run, which is also very good. So I guess that brings us on to the last one on the list now.
Yeah, very briefly, I wanted to bring up comic called, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Pareidolia. And it's actually something I found on Val Halverson's page, that Val Halverson being the artist of Finger Guns, found it on his Twitter page, or their Twitter page, when I was just doing some research before the cast. And it's basically their 8-page horror comic short that they've put on Twitter. And it's really good. It's just so Pareidolia is the phenomenon of seeing faces in things. And it like the big cover page for this short comic has like a head that's a person's worried face that's literally outlined by the letters for the word pareidolia. And as you're reading through the story, you'll realize that there is like a hidden face hidden in every single panel. And it's basically a short story about a woman who appears to be suffering from a recent tragedy and is explaining to us, the audience, how she used to experience pareidolia a lot as a child and how it faded the older she got. And there's a horror slant to it. Like, it's so short that I don't want to give too much detail. It's worth just checking out. It's another example of Val Halverson's amazing artwork, but not the bright, colorful saccharine. Or not saccharine's wrong. The bright, colorful, like sweet vibrancy that we had from Finger Guns. It's a very effective horror story. But you checked this out as well, right, Greg?
I did, yeah. And it is really cool. Like, I was really into this, actually, really enjoyed it, and the bit at the end was really good. It's really like it's on where as you like go through each panel contains a hidden face, and as you're going through and you're starting to notice like these different faces and things in each panel, and it's like, I mean, like, it's not something you think about, and then after reading this, it's something that gets quite unnerving. The fact that you start to see faces in everything. And I mean, it's something that I actually used to do as a kid. I used to sit and like pick faces out of patterns and stuff, when I'm bored in the doctor's office or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty
like
common.
Waiting, right? In waiting rooms and stuff. And it's just something that you never really think that much about. And then you read this comic and now you're scared to look at a door.
No, I mean, for me, it's like I learned the term pareidolia through a friend, because like we used to make jokes about like finding faces in things, and he told me what the definition of that term was, or what it was called. And like, I love that. I love looking around and seeing. I tend to try and find like cute faces and things, but I like that this is finding. It's got that Haunting of Hill House vibe, where it's like horrific, drawn out, like terrifying faces hidden in the corners of of like, in the darkness and stuff. It's I like it. I like anything that's got a bit of a Where's Wally aspect to it as well. Like, I've been feeling this lately, and I wanted to maybe touch on it with Quarantine Comics, but the fact that like it's digestible but dense, which is what I mean by the Where's Wally thing, where there's like a lot of detail packed into one page, and you end up, there's like an economy of spending. It gives me a reason to spend more time on each page, but then doesn't ask for my attention for too long. Like, it's 8 pages, and I wanted to pore over every page, as opposed to sometimes with like the weekly comics, I feel like they're very, I don't know, easily swallowable. Like, I don't know. I just liked the fact that it was short and creepy and cool.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I like this, like you say, you bring up this thing where they're short comics, but there's so much packed in, and like such a grand concept or something explored across, so few pages and done really well as well. Like, that's something that I can totally get behind. Like, I love that stuff. Like, what you can get, if you buy this on Gumroad, by the way, you can get so you can get the PDF versions of it, where you've got like the version with the lettering, and then you've got like a lettering free version, which just lets you look at the panels and pick out the faces. So
yeah, it's cool. I like when creators give that kind of stuff away as well.
So I bought it. I bought it on Gumroad and got both versions. Like, you messaged me about this literally an hour before we recorded this cast. And you're like, check it out, and I was all over it. It was great.
Yeah, I thought you in particular would like this.
Yeah, no, I love this stuff. Yeah, so Pareidolia, and that's the same artist that worked on Finger Guns, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah,
Val Harvison. Yeah. So that brings us to the end. Unless anyone's got anything else left they want to mention. No? Okay. So, Ray, did you have something you wanted to shout out for the pull list?
Yeah, just something I spotted, because I've not been paying super attention to, the weekly releases for a while now. But I noticed that on the 15th of April, Everything Volume 1 came out, and we talked about, I can't remember how far we discussed everything, but we all definitely talked about at least a few issues, and we all definitely liked it. So that's something I wanted to point out. Everything Volume 1 is a worthy book to pick up. I
think I've got like all of Volume 1 in single issues. So, but yeah. So I mean, like, what your point about the weekly releases, I haven't really been putting anything on the pull list because there are no weekly releases right now, really. So everything seems to have kind of halted, but we're getting a lot of collections and things like that. So that's always cool. And a lot of things that we may have been mentioning as weekly releases or things to look out for in previous episodes are now collected in trades. So that's something to go looking at. Example, Everything Volume 1. For the next show, I guess the only thing on my pull list is the fact that for the next show, I plan to have some proper thoughts on the All Red Bowie biography that I bought. So I've been talking about this book and I keep mentioning it, and I've actually gone out and bought it. So I've already read it, but I'm going to read it again, and I'm going to get some proper thoughts on it, and then I'll be able to talk about that. And that has been Ace Comicals episode number 86. So you can find us in all the usual places. www.acecomicals.com is the kind of hub for everything we do. You can find us anywhere that you can find a podcast, like Apple Podcasts, Castbox, Castro, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn. Yeah, everywhere. You can buy a t-shirt from us now. So if you want to go browse the t-shirts, you can go to acecomicals.threadless.com and you can check out the 2 designs that we've got live at the moment, which we talked about earlier in the show. And yeah, if something takes your fancy, go ahead. They're on a range of colors and styles, so it's all up to you. There's hoodies and sweatshirts as well. You can find me on Twitter at Batto, at Battou. You can find Ace Comicals on Twitter at Ace Comics. You can send us an email. If you want to get in touch via email, it is acecomicals@gmail.com. We have a Ko-fi, which is kofi.com/acecomicals, where you can donate the price of a coffee to help us defray the cost of keeping the website hosted and the podcast live. And Ray, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Monkeh, so that's MOONKEH.
And Leon, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Leon Everett.
And that has been Ace Comicals episode number 86. So that is Ace Comicals, over and out.